on a windy day, it's just got jillions, and that's a very scientific number, I realize, but it's got jillions of little bubbles coming up through it all the time. When you take away the oxygen source, then within a couple of hours, things are starting to go anaerobic. They've run out of oxygen. You're starting to stimulate bad bacteria, which we know as anaerobes, and the aerobic, or the good bacteria, numbers start dropping off. So that's why we really feel that you should use the compost tea quickly. If you can't use it quickly, if you get home and get delayed, just go over every few minutes and do this to get some more oxygen down into the water. But you know, after 24 hours, I tell you, not really much good. If you let it sit a really long time, you could actually use it for a weed killer. So in other words, pour it out and get some fresh. Yes, ma'am.
When you say spray it on, I mean, what do you use? What
you can dilute it as pretty much as you want to. The people that do this commercially figure about 4 gallons per acre. So you can dilute it down and spray it just about any way you like. If you wonder what happens to what's left over on Sunday afternoon, it usually goes home with me. It doesn't get sprayed, it just gets poured on. There's no such thing as putting it on too strong. It won't hurt anything. There's nothing in there that would harm anything. But it will, you know, a gallon of it is enough probably to spray an average yard. And what it is, it's just a, you know, huge batch of beneficial fungus and bacteria. One of these days I'll get Malcolm Beck to bring over his microscope that's hooked onto a big TV screen, and we can actually set it up and show you the things. You can see the things that we look at through a microscope. It's one of the first things we do on Saturday morning is we've got a good microscope in there. You know, I'm an old research biologist by training. We spend a lot of money to go take Dr. Lane Ingham's course on the microbes that are in compost tea, so we check it out to be sure that it's full of all kinds of good stuff, but we'd love to be able to actually show you what we're looking at sometime through a microscope. You can see all the different things that you get out of compost tea. Yes?
It clogs up my sprayer all the time. It'll only let it come out of the dial sprayer like a couple of minutes, and then I have to stop it, take off the top. Just strain it?
Strain it, yeah. Pour it through some old pantyhose or something like that. And yeah, that probably is the best thing to do. The other thing you can do is that little strainer that's on the bottom of the uptake tube, just pop that off and set the top of it to spray fairly heavily, 4 ounces a gallon or more.
Okay.
Is this tea instead of fertilizing or on top?
No. Again, fertilizer provides nutrients, macro and micro. The macronutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. The micronutrients are the iron, the zinc, the boron, the manganese, the sulfur, the calcium, the iron, all those things. In school we learned it was C. Hopkins Cafe, which is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, you know, and go through potassium, all those other things. The compost tea is just the beneficial microbes that occur in the soil. There are many things that can kill the microbes out of the soil. Principal among those is chemical fertilizer. Chemical fertilizer literally sterilizes the soil. The plants end up, in effect, living hydroponically. In a tablespoon of healthy soil, you can have as many as 10,000 different kinds of beneficial bacteria, as many as 5,000 different kinds of beneficial fungi. And in good, healthy, organic soil, you've got lots of them there. But in soils that have been abused one way or the other, they're there in very low supply. Soils that really need help in remediation, doing compost tea on a regular basis is one of the best things you can do. Soils that just need a little bit of help, you know, do it once, 2, 3 times a year. You won't ever overuse it. It doesn't cost very much to make. We charge $5 a gallon for it because that tea making machine cost us over $2,000, and so it's kind of like you can have a very expensive machine and a very inexpensive process, but the machine does need some maintenance and things. But if you ever want to get into making this yourself, we'll get Bruce Dooley over here again sometime to show you how he makes his little $25 tea maker. But compost tea is a wonderful thing. The world authority on compost tea is a lady named Dr. Elaine Ingham. If you want to go online, her website is soilfoodweb.com. And there's some interesting things on there. Elaine is a former professor of biology at the University of Oregon at Corvallis, and that's where her headquarters still are. But she's got offices like in 4 different continents now. Roberta, my business partner, and I paid several $100s a piece to go take one of her courses when she was teaching in Austin. And it was just absolutely fascinating. She showed some incredible pictures. She had a picture in somewhere they were doing pivot irrigation. You know, you see it most when you're flying over an area, but you see these big round green circles, and that's from those big pivot irrigators that go around in a circle. They applied compost tea to one half of it, but not to the other half. And it literally, this side was dense and green. This side, the soil was probably 60% covered. It was probably 40% bare soil. And the only difference, you use the same amount of fertilizer and everything else, the only difference was compost tea. I think this might have even been a wheat crop or something like that. It would have been interesting to know the difference in how much one side produced as compared to the other side. But she took the picture of the field and went and showed the farmer the difference. So what did he do? He went and applied compost tea to the other side, and a month later the whole thing was gorgeous. So I don't know how much data there is actually comparing production. We do know it works. We'll do a whole seminar in the spring probably on compost tea. It's a fascinating subject. But it basically, it is just a source of microbes. It does not replace the fertilizer.
So it's kind of a booster. Fertilizer booster.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You can't even call it a vitamin. I would call, you know, a micronutrient source like a vitamin, but this is the activator, so to speak. It's kind of like they say vitamin C doesn't work unless you have the bioflavonoids along with it. Well, this is sort of the bioflavonoids for soil and fertilizer.
So when would you apply it? Like after your crop is over for the winter?
You can apply it anytime. Just apply it fresh. Don't get it until you're ready to use it. If you're making your own, of course, you can do it anytime. We make it on and have it available on Saturdays and Sundays. If anybody ever wanted 25 gallons of it, you know, that's how much our tea maker makes. We'd brew you a batch almost any time. But just, there's never a bad time to put it out. Other questions? Okay. Speaking of micronutrients, if you're using something like the Medina granular, you probably will never see an iron deficiency or zinc or any of the other things. But if you ever do want to be sure that you have all of those micronutrients in there, if you've got just extremely poor soil or things aren't as dark green as you would like, there are a couple of bad sources of iron and zinc. The worst one out there is one called ironite. Now I'm happy to say that it has been improved. Up until a year or so ago, it was full of arsenic, it was full of lead. It was, the company that made it was actually using it as a way to dump a bunch of toxic waste because they could put it in the product as filler. Whereas if they just, you know, had the product alone, the government would have made it do horrible things to get rid of it. So they just mixed it in with their other mine tailings and sold it to you and called it ironite. They have been forced to stop doing that, but they still have some pretty nasty stuff in there. This, to me, is a much, much better product. It's Medina's product they call micronutrients. It's all natural. It's made from some clays out of central Mexico. Again, most of y'all probably don't need it, but if you ever have plants showing severe yellowing or chlorosis, it's a great product to use. It's also available